Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is looking at the harvest full supermoon, which is occurring on September 29th, 2023, probably everywhere in the world. I don't know how often I ever say that. I live in the central time zone in the United States, and it's occurring here at 4:58 a.m. So if you're in Europe, it's still going to be in the morning, I'm assuming, in the late morning. But people down under, it'll probably be late at night. I think I have my time zones correct. So this is, there might be, I don't know if there's any place that is 5 hours behind me, like Hawaii or something. I don't know how far they're behind. It could be on the 28th for maybe some people in the South Pacific. I have no idea. You'll have to check on that. But anyway, this is going to be in Aries. And Aries is a cardinal fire sign. And, people who have their natal moon in Aries are known for being quite volatile. Okay. Part of this is because it's, Aries is a fire sign, so fire signs have fiery energy, and they are emotional, not like water signs. They're not sensitive in that way, but they're just very combustible, okay? So we can expect that type of energy, not the, touchy-feely, in the feels kind of, like a Pisces or a Cancer. I don't know about Scorpio. That's one I'll leave to other people to figure that one out. But water signs like those, there's a more gentle quality. This is more like revolutionary, rebellious. We're not going to take this kind of like we're fed up. Supermoon bigger than the normal moon, so exerting a greater influence, ostensibly. And the harvest moon, this is a really cool one because I always like to go to almanac.com to see, I know why they call it the harvest moon. This is, these were names given by people from the United States, well, probably Canada too, but like North America, what they call Native Americans in North America. And also in Europe, they would also name the moons. But the harvest moon is the full moon that occurs closest to the fall equinox, which is this year on the 23rd of September. So the equinox will be happening 6 days before the full moon in Aries. And so that is a very powerful time of great change. And the fact that it's in Aries, that's another thing that we have to talk about, because Aries being a cardinal sign and its opposite sign is Libra, and that, at the time of any full moon, you have the sun and moon in opposition to one another. There's a dynamic quality to that, because that's why at every equinox and every solstice, it's in cardinal signs, because it heralds change. It's a change of seasons, but we can extend that to other areas of our life that, may change. So this is a very powerful time at the end of September. And another name for this moon is the corn moon. And that's because they were harvesting the corn. Now, I'm actually surprised about that, because the corn comes in earlier, but I have been kind of like, okay, where's the corn? I don't know. But the Dakota Indians called it the corn harvest moon. And other names, which I think are very poetic, you might find interesting. The Lakotas called it the moon of brown leaves. That's so beautiful. I say Indians, it's Native Americans, obviously. The Cree called it autumn moon. Because, yes, of course, autumn begins technically on the equinox, so that would make a lot of sense. So, anyway, one of the names too is the rutting moon, and that's the Cree Native Americans called it that, where they say mating moon and rutting moon. I thought rutting was when the antlers fell off, but anyway, the moose, the elk, deer want to get busy. All right. I bet you didn't know I was going to say that. Okay, so the sun is in Libra and the moon is in Aries. Well, these are strange bedfellows because Libra wants peace and Aries wants to mix things up. So look for some of that. Look for some of that kind of like that difficulty with peace versus conflict. When I say difficulty, I mean trying to kind of integrate the two, but maybe because emotions run high at this time, it's really that Aries wins out. You know, the loudest noise in the room can win out. This is occurring on a Friday, so for sure, even though in my time zone it goes exact in, the early morning hours, for some of you this is going to be, the weekend, the beginning of the weekend. And so, just keep that in mind, that there might be a lot of exaggeration. That's what I think of too with fire, is that everything gets heightened and exaggerated, expanded. Actually, there's a lot of, I feel like there's a fire also with Venus is in Leo, not going to form a trine to these planets because it's a later degree, but at least it's in the same element. And Mars is in Libra, again, a later degree, so it won't form a conjunction with the sun in opposition to the moon. But in any case, we have some nice angles here, and we have some things to keep in mind. I would say, and I say this with people who have Mars and Libra in their natal chart, but because Mars is in Libra, you may be, there may be even protests, people fighting to, have peace. Kind of contradictory, isn't it? And, you might want to think about those kinds of things, of like what it is that you believe in. What are your beliefs and what are you willing to do about them? Because sometimes people protest and really, it gets a lot of that energy out, but it doesn't necessarily do anything constructive. And with Mars and Libra, I do believe that even relationship issues there can be drama with them. And part of it is trying to suppress whatever needs to come out, because Mars and Libra might be trying to be the peacemaker, not realizing that conflict is part of life. And we have to accept conflict. If you've ever had a situation where you've been talking to, let's say you're at a party or you're out to dinner and you get into a heated debate with someone about politics, for instance, and then you have someone else that says, okay, come on, you guys. And it's almost like they get nervous with conflict. I guarantee you that person has a prominent Libra in their makeup, or maybe they have, stellium in the 7th house, and it makes them actually nervous to hear people engaged in conflict, even if those people really enjoy sparring with one another and they enjoy debating. It's just that sometimes people can't accept the fact that we do have differences in life. We're not all the same. It doesn't, and even if we debate one another, it doesn't have to turn ugly. So, if you feel that sense of like, oh my gosh, things are spinning out of control, I think part of that is with that moon, there's a volatile quality to it. So it can be exciting though, and it can be very creative. So it's not just all negative. Um, Mercury is in Virgo, which is very strange because Virgo is analytical, but it's also very what we'd call earthbound in the sense that Aries, the fire element, cannot be contained to the earth. It's not tangible. You can't hold fire in your hand. So our mind may be preoccupied on things of a practical nature, and meanwhile we're looking at this situation. It's very disjointed. I don't know how else to put it, because there's this discrepancy between what we're seeing around us and what is in our minds. So there can be this tendency to be, in that analytical mode, but we really need to kind of feel what is happening. Aries is very spontaneous, but on the flip side, you can call it rash. And so dealing with other people can be tricky during this full moon. And by the way, I mean, I've noticed this type of behavior the day before. It's not always just on the day. So right around that full moon, or afterwards too. So right around that time, pay attention, be very vigilant about how people are conducting themselves. Because if you notice a lot of outbursts, a lot of, rash, kind of like walking out of a room, being very, like when people turn over the checkerboard and walk out in a huff, that's almost like kind of childish. That's the dark side of Aries, is that tendency to be very childish, having temper tantrums, and not doing things too suddenly, or without thinking. I feel that is a very important thing to point out, is that there can be a lot of problems when people do things like that. So with Venus and Leo, things can be extravagant romantically, because again, the sun is in Libra, and even Aries can be wildly romantic. So this is a great night to go out with your partner. If you feel, sense the vibes, because if you feel like things seem like totally unhinged, you might want to wait a couple of days, but maybe you can do it at home, even if you feel like there's too much going out in the outer world. And by the way, the way things are these days, that's like a given at any time, that we have to be aware of our surroundings in terms of the chaos that we can experience. And I say that as somebody who is not necessarily seeing this firsthand, but I live in a greater community where sometimes there are flash mobs and all these kinds of acting out things. So just be in tune with your intuition and see where you go. But this can be great for any kind of romantic evening. And yeah, Mars and Libra, the whole 9 yards. Maybe some people will decide to propose to their partner, decide to live together if they don't want to get married, those kinds of things. all of that can be very romantic and very passionate. Aries is very passionate. So I think that there's a lot of good, let's see, I'll give you some examples. Mercury is trining Jupiter, so very cooperative for practices involving affirmations and visualization. Oh no, what do they call it? Like just positive thinking. Positive thinking. I would say visualization with anything to involve Neptune. But actually, Mercury is opposing Neptune. So be careful about your conversations with other people. Pin people down. Don't allow vague declarations to stand. Because when there is a hard angle from Mercury to Neptune, it's easy for information to get distorted. And if somebody gets offended, then they can just kind of stalk off, and they could quit their job, not realizing that nothing offensive was meant. So, they can do some really foolish things in the heat of the moment. Again, there's a lot of cardinal energy here, not just with the Aries, but Libra is a cardinal sign, and you have Mars in Libra as well as the Sun in Libra. So people want to really act on things. That's just the time of year it is, with the equinox and things like that. That feeling of change is in the air. So that's great, but don't do it rashly. Don't do it when you feel engaged or when you may have misunderstood something. There's a trine from Mercury to Uranus, so that's great for anything to do with coming up with original ideas, inventive ideas, and a trine from Mercury to Pluto, which is great for knowing your power and the power of concentration too. But the power of transformation, really, I think above all else. The Sun is trining Pluto, so that is great for personal power. One thing to be careful of is the square between Mars and Pluto. That could be very volatile, although Mars is in Libra, so that's good. Pluto at this point is still retrograding. So that's the thing. It can be coming from an unconscious place. And so be conscious at all times. These are the two planets that rule Scorpio. And so do not allow anything to make you drawn to dangerous circumstances. This can be violence and power. So obviously we can't control the outer world, but we can control, oh my God, I dropped my phone. We can control our inner world, okay? And the other thing is there are some great aspects to Pluto. The Sun is trining Pluto as well as Mercury. I mentioned those. And Pluto is squaring Chiron. So this is, to me, because Pluto is a generational planet, and, Chiron is half a cycle of the generations, about 7 years. There is this, in the collective, I do feel that there is this feeling of the pain of being controlled and the pain of covert forces that have, tried to use surreptitious or hidden ways of gaining control and manipulation. I see Pluto as manipulation as well, and the pain that generates for the whole of humanity. Well, these are the times they are a-changing. Okay, so we're going to go through these growing pains where people start to rise up. I'm not talking about necessarily going into the streets, but yeah, there will be some of that too. But United States, we have protests, but look at the rest of the world. Look at Europe, France, and other countries that have really risen up against oppression. So these kinds of things have, also because Pluto has come back into Capricorn, there is these rumblings of once again having more top-down control. That's what Pluto and Capricorn can be all about. And when people have been controlled and manipulated, again, Pluto square Chiron, and they have submitted, and then they have quote unquote gotten their freedom, it's very hard to put that genie back in the bottle. It's very hard to do, you can't enter the same river twice. So even if these countries try to impose these draconian measures, it's not going to end well. It's not going to go as planned because everything has changed. So that's when it gets complicated. So we may see something in the collective, in what is happening in the world, that is connected to these actions, and people, may be tempted to react in a very rash way. And so that's why I'm saying either don't do it yourself or don't be around other people who are doing it, because then you get caught up in their madness and what have you. But we'll see what happens. You never know. But anyway, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you'd like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.